we got to focus on activities first in all ways, shape, and we got to do whatever we can to ensure that those activities are in front of us constantly. So what are the activity-based indicators to drive production in your office? The idea of focusing on activities. In fact, you know what I'll do, I'll show you. When you talk about the 5 components of a high-performing team, and like I've talked about in my book, whether you run a real estate team or even for solo agents or for brokerage owners and their leadership team and their organization, you can see, any type of leadership, which is so prevalent up and down real estate, meaning, it's composed of independent contractors that all run their own business. But starting at the top with broker owners of real estate companies, brands, offices, even managers, we've talked about creating a goal, but probably the part that's most overlooked is the ability to focus on activities. And that's number 2. It's the second component of a high-performing team, focusing on activities. It is really crazy to me. It's almost, this is probably the reason that the coaching industry exists. I shouldn't be upset about it. It is my job security. But at the same time, this is the weird part of the human brain that there isn't a lot of science around, why we have such a tendency to know what to do and not be able to do it. And it's crazy. And what's really, I'll give you an example how crazy it is. If we go to work at a 9-to-5 job or whatever, we'll do whatever they tell us to do. If they tell us that you got to make these calls for 2 hours and here's the calls and here's you get a call and here's what you got to say, do it all day long. And phone calls are probably the hardest thing most agents consider associated with lead generation. Broker owners, team leaders, any leaders, it's reaching out, usually for personnel, recruiting. Extremely challenging. You'll do it if someone else pays you, but when you have to do it for yourself, no way. Any type of lead generation with agents, same deal. Reaching out to your sphere of influence or prospecting for business from people you don't know, several million ways to do that. All of those things, we'll do it for someone else for a paycheck or we'll get fired. But when it comes for us and our family, magical how we won't do it. We'll go to conferences and spend so much money for knowledge on how to learn how to do things. But when it comes down to actually doing it, it's a whole different animal. And here's why. We don't focus on the activities. We don't focus on the activities. We focus on the results, okay? And that's kind of a key aspect here. Results, and here's how that looks, right? Sales volume drops in the market. There's less sales. What do broker owners do? Broker owners look to see how many units they're closing this year, maybe looking compared to last year. They might be looking at this month to see how we're doing compared to last month. They might look at this month compared to last year, this same month, to get a gauge. Now, there's nothing we can do about that information though. That's like looking in the rear view mirror of a car. Agents will do the exact same thing. They'll look at sales volume being down, say they're making less money, and then they'll make changes in their life. Like they'll cut this subscription, they'll move brokerages and go to a cheaper brokerage. They'll cancel their, cable, they'll discontinue some, gym membership. We just look at results based on how we're doing right now. That's what we do as humans. We tend to gravitate to looking at results, which if you're driving a car, that's just looking out the rearview mirror. There's really nothing you can do about it. They're not actionable. So we end up just reacting to what happens. We don't have any control over our future. We start operating a business that is totally by default rather than by our own design. It's almost like we can do nothing about it as the market goes up and down, even annually, with seasonality of winters and then up into the harvest season of spring and summer, we're up and down like a yo-yo. And it's really hard to, run a business, grow a business when you're at the whims of what society and the economy and the market does to you. It's very stressful. You're hiring and you're laying off all the time. Your agents are going to be stressed all the time. You're going to be stressed all the time. Your family doesn't know where the next paycheck's coming from. That's why a lot of people don't last. The stress gets to them and they go get a steady paycheck. That's why a lot of agents leave the business. I mean, I can't tell you how many agents I have seen that made $200,000, and because they didn't get a paycheck for 3 months, they went and took a job for $80,000 a year. I mean, just because they cannot keep it steady, and it's all because they're focused on results, not, they don't believe there's anything they can do to effectuate change rather than, generate income in business when they don't have it coming in. They're so used to looking at the results. Right? And let me look at I'm going to show you a timeline, because ABIs, activity-based indicators, are what we want to focus on, okay? They're activity-based indicators versus results-based indicators. You've all heard about a term called KPIs, key performance indicators. Well, if I let you just use the word KPI, I know what y'all do. That's what all humans do. They go right to results. Let's look at the numbers. Nothing we can do about them other than freak out, right? What are ABIs? Activity-based indicators actually take KPIs and we divide them into two: activity-based indicators and results-based indicators, okay? And yes, I want to look at the results. Don't worry. I mean, I'm not going to ignore them. They do motivate me. I do plan based on them. It's good to look at the results, but every day, every week, I really want to focus on the activities that drive those results. Okay. And in real estate or any sales industry, they're very, very key. Broker owners, team leaders, based on, things like recruiting, coaching, training to increase production. It's recruiting and retention. Retention is basically training and coaching in your offices, trying to get your agents sell more. So if the office production's up, so what are the activity-based indicators to drive production in your office? Could be coaching, one-on-one coaching, could be training events, right? Could be consulting agents in the office, could be reaching out and engaging agents to try to bring them in, to get them plugged back in so they don't sit at home eating bonbons, watching soap operas all day. All those things will actually, in theory, generate more business for leaders, right? Agents, they have the same deal too. I mean, they have got, what can they be doing? They can be making contacts, whether it be to people they know in their sphere of influence or people they don't yet know that might want to buy or sell real estate. Those are lead generation attempts, right? But unfortunately, we get confused and we start gravitating to the results side of things over time, because the attempts, no matter where you fall on that scale from, broker owner all the way down to your agents, the attempts are the not fun part. There are very few people that like to recruit. There are very few people that like to lead generate. I mean, it's pretty rare. And I've done both, and I've done both at very successful high levels for long periods of my career. In fact, I was considered one of the best at both. Hated it. I also hate sit-ups. There's lots of things I hate that I do regularly. I hate eating healthy. I mean, doesn't mean I don't do them, right? But if I, and I get off track like everybody else does, and I put things in place to get me on track, like the 5 key components. And that's the idea. So let me show you this difference, what I'm talking about here, when I talk about the sliding scale between the activity-based indicator on the left-hand side here versus the RBIs. And this is a typical, like any sales industry, right? It starts with the contact, right? We got to reach out and make contact. I mean, that could be a dial or it could be an actual contact, which is someone, you engage with somebody else. Either they reply to your text, they reply to your video text, they answer your phone and you speak to a decision maker. That's a contact. And, that contact could be a recruiting contact by a leader of some sort by an agent. The agent's, a lead generation contact to a sphere of influence member or someone likely to buy or sell real estate. That's a contact. And once we generate someone and make contact, then it's how do we follow up and how do we nurture them to a point where we can actually set an appointment. And then we can have an appointment, because sometimes they don't show up, right? Then we have the appointment. And as we keep moving to the right, we can see contract sign of some sort, right? For leaders, they might join your team or join a brokerage. For the agents, it could be a buyer exclusive agency agreement, a listing agreement, could even be an offer. Somehow they go from a customer to be your client, someone that is, under some sort of, you have some sort of duty to, legally recognized duty, right? Where they're working with you now. And then we're going to close something, right? Either they join the brokerage, join the team, or we close a transaction. So all of these are important. We got to do all of these to make a living. But when in doubt, if we're having problems with any of these, we move to the left-hand side back over to contacts, because seriously, I haven't seen many people leave the real estate industry because they're having a problem holding appointments. You hold enough appointments, you're going to get good at them. Make sense? So if you stay focused over here on contacts, you'll almost always power through. And you'll see that. You'll see that with agents. They'll say, man, all of a sudden, I'm missing listing appointments because these sellers aren't realistic on price all of a sudden. Now if the market's slowed down, for example, or these buyers are now not wanting to sign an exclusive buyer agency agreement because they're waiting on changes with interest rates. And yeah, all you have to do, keep making enough contacts, keep out enough appointments. Trust me, you will start to develop the scripts and tools and systems. The problem is not in the appointments in the middle, typically. The problem almost always is not enough contacts. Just here to tell you. But agents, these are easier problems to fix in the middle with appointments and contracts. It's easier to talk about those. They're not so painless. We can log into a webinar and learn about that, or run around offices and gripe about that, and complain. Well, it's no use. These agents aren't going to join my brokerage right now. They're all locked in. Our commission split's not good enough, or it's no use. We're not ready for that yet. Or, it's no use. No one's going to buy anyway with these interest rates, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We will use the middle of the funnel to be an excuse to not make the contacts up front. The point of the matter is, you make any contact in any market, it works. At the peak of COVID, where we had one of the hottest markets in history, at the peak of 2006, one of the hottest markets in history, where there were no expired listings, expired prospectors were setting 100 listing appointments, converting 100 listing appointments into listings a year. Sorry, every lead generation method works in every freaking market. Just the way it works. You're wondering why people with guaranteed sales, I'll sell your house, I'll get you a guaranteed offer. How does that work in these red hot markets when sellers can put it in MLS and get top dollar? Guess what? It works too. Just about every lead generation technique you've heard of, at least multiple times over multiple years, works in every market. Just the way it works, But we tend to tell ourselves these things won't work at these times because of markets. And that means you are getting too focused on results. And we all do. I do. Everybody does. Everybody does. We always move too far onto results, and we need to correct ourselves and get back over to activities. It's extremely hard to do. Okay, it's extremely tough to do. We will find every excuse under the planet to not focus on activity-based indicators. It's why all of our dashboards, all our coaching is trying to force putting activities first, because we just don't want to do it. It's painful, and we will move away from pain much, much faster than we will move towards, the pleasure associated with a reward, the results. We'll focus on the results and react to them. That's neurological science. That has been proven in sales training over time, which is why if you isolate by yourself and try to do this, it's extremely hard. It's why agents need brokerages. It's why a lot of agents need teams. It's why agents need coaches. It's why agents need leadership. It is, because all isolate by yourself. You just elect yourself the mayor of Crazy Town and you watch that spiral. I'm yet to see anyone pull it off on their own and focus on activities. They just don't. I honestly, none. Even successful solo agents, they just can't do it. They don't focus on lead generation well by themselves. So if they are lucky enough to know enough people to get 20 or 30 transactions a year come their way, then they will do that business by default and they'll get that many. Most can't make it that far. They can't stay in the business long enough to get to a point where they get 20, 30 transactions and just kind of admit, I don't like to lead generate. Of course you don't. I don't like sit-ups. I don't like health. I don't like going to church. I don't like lots of things. So what they do is they just take that 20 to 30 and they hang it up and come up with lots of reasons why we're not going to lead generate. And that's fine. You can settle that way, but that is exactly what every one of them are doing. Here to tell you, because I'm yet to see anybody that without absent leadership. And that's why brokers and owners have a place, man. And rather than get frustrated by agents' lack of ability to do what they need to do to succeed and focus on the ABIs, leaders need to kind of change their mindset and say, wait a minute, that's why we are here. Don't let them frustrate us. That's because if they didn't have that problem, I'm not sure they necessarily need us. And that's a big mindset check. That's a big mindset check right there, okay? Now, another thing I want to make sure I shift gears on here and point out, your activities must be in direct alignment with your goal, right? So, if you got a goal, to sell 1 billion homes in your brokerage, or 100 houses in your team in a year, or 25 houses as a solo agent this year, or whatever, 15 houses, 10 houses in your first year in business, whatever the goal is for you, your agents, what have you, understand your ABIs must be in direct alignment with it, okay? And in the world of real estate, in all leadership, we've talked about making goals smart, specific, and measurable, most important. And so that's why we have goals, is to have a number, 100 homes, like I said, 25, 15, million in sales volume, whatever, billion, whatever. So that way we can actually back off that and determine the amount of contacts needed, the amount of recruits we need to join, the number of agents we need on a team, the number of, contacts an agent must make to generate and hit their goals. We got to know that. So they have to be in alignment with numbers. And so if we start to pick ABIs that aren't in alignment with that goal, you know what I mean? Like, well, I'm just going to start, here's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to do 2 bot buys a week, and I'm going to deliver 2 pies a week to my sphere of influence. Well, that's cool. But, there's only like 6 weeks in the holiday season and you're going to deliver 2 a week. That's a whopping 12 pies. Is that going to make you hit your goal of 25 homes sold next year? Not likely, so we got to make sure they are in alignment here. And we got to make sure, those pop buys are fine. I'm cool with that. But we're going to need other stuff too. So it's real important that we make sure they are in alignment with it. And they're designed to do it. You know what I mean? If it's just like, hey, I'm going to go play golf more down at the golf course, I don't know if that really counts. Like, that may not be a contact. Or I'm going to hang out down at the lounge or the Elks Club. They got to be in alignment, like a little bit more purposeful towards generating business, and they got to be numerically more geared with it too. That's really, really important, right? So I want to make sure we understand that and get that deal that we got to focus on activities first in all ways, shape, and we got to do whatever we can to ensure that those activities are in front of us constantly.